Manchester, England. 1956. A team of archaeologists stands around a metal scroll, waiting. The scroll is made of pure copper, nearly 2,000 years old, found rolled up in a cave in the Judean desert. They've spent weeks figuring out how to open it without destroying it. Copper that old is brittle. One wrong move and it crumbles. Finally, they cut it into sections, carefully, precisely, and they begin reading what's engraved inside. What they find isn't religious text. It's not scripture. It's not philosophy. It's a treasure map. 64 locations, precise directions, tunnels, courtyards, cisterns, tombs. In the ruin that is in the Valley of Acre, 42 talents of silver. In the cistern which is below the rampart, 900 talents of gold. In the tomb, 65 bars of gold. Total estimated value? Between $1 billion and $3 billion in modern currency. Possibly more. For 70 years, archaeologists, treasure hunters, and adventurers have searched for these locations. Hundreds of expeditions. Millions spent. Not a single coin has been found. So what is the Copper Scroll? A real treasure map? An ancient fantasy? A hoax? Or something far more mysterious? And if the treasure is real, where did billions of dollars in ancient gold and silver disappear to? To understand the Copper Scroll, you need to understand where it was found. Between 1947 and 1956, Bedouin shepherds and archaeologists discovered approximately 900 ancient manuscripts in caves near Qumran, on the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls, biblical texts, religious writings, sectarian documents dating from approximately 300 BC to 70 AD. Most are written on parchment or papyrus. They contain biblical passages, prayers, community rules, apocalyptic visions. Then, in March 1952, in Cave 3, archaeologists find something different. Cave 3 is remote, difficult to access. But when excavators enter, they find fragments of scrolls scattered on the cave floor. And in the back, partially buried, 2 corroded copper rolls. Not parchment, not papyrus, copper. Each roll is about 30 centimeters wide, made of thin hammered copper sheets riveted together. The metal is oxidized, green with age, brittle from nearly 2,000 years in a cave. The Copper Scroll is unique among the Dead Sea Scrolls in every way. Material copper, not organic material, the only metal scroll ever found. Content: secular treasure inventory, not religious text. Language: Hebrew, but a different dialect from other scrolls. More colloquial, possibly vernacular. Script: crudely engraved, not professional scribal work. Letters are inconsistent, amateur. Preservation: oxidation made it impossible to unroll without destroying it. Purpose: practical document, not literature or scripture. It doesn't belong with the other scrolls. It's an outlier, an anomaly. For 4 years, scholars debate how to open it. Unrolling is impossible. The metal would shatter. Finally, in 1955 to 1956, the scroll is sent to H. Wright Baker at the Manchester College of Technology in England. His solution: cut it into sections. Using a specialized saw, he carefully cuts the scroll into 23 strips, preserving the text engraved on the interior. The process takes weeks. One mistake and millennia-old writing is lost forever. But it works, and when scholars begin translating the text, they realize they're holding a treasure map listing billions of dollars in hidden gold and silver. The Copper Scroll contains 64 entries. Each entry describes a location and a quantity of treasure hidden there. The format is consistent. In the ruin that is in the Valley of Acre, under the steps, with the entrance at the east, a distance of 40 cubits, a chest of silver and its vessels with a weight of 17 talents. Each entry provides a location, often a ruin, cistern, tomb, or courtyard, directional clues, under the east entrance. In the northern corner, 40 cubits from the treasure, type, gold, silver, vessels, and quantity, in talents, bars, or containers. Occasionally, additional scrolls. Some entries mention another copy of this inventory. Let's talk about the quantities, because they're staggering. The scroll lists approximately 282 talents of silver, 280 talents of gold, 608 vessels of silver and gold, numerous bars, ingots, and artifacts. A talent was an ancient unit of weight, approximately 30 to 35 kilograms, 66 to 77 pounds. So we're talking about 100,000 kg of silver, 220,000 pounds, 40,000 kg of gold, 88,000 pounds. At current precious metal prices, that's conservatively $1 to $3 billion. Some estimates go higher. Some entries are relatively specific. Others are maddeningly vague. Examples: Entry 1. In the ruin that is in the Valley of Acre. Valley of Acre is a real biblical location, mentioned in Joshua 7 and Entry 5. In the cistern which is below the rampart on the east side, in a hollow that opens to the north. Cistern below which rampart? Hundreds exist. Entry 32. In the cave of the old washer's chamber, 65 bars of gold. What's the washer's chamber? Unknown. Entry 54. In the tunnel of. Text is damaged, location unclear. Entry 64. In the pit adjoining on the north. A copy of this document with an explanation and their measurements. That last one is crucial. It suggests there was another scroll, possibly explaining the locations more clearly. That scroll has never been found. The Hebrew in the copper scroll is unusual. It's not the literary Hebrew of other Dead Sea Scrolls. It's colloquial, possibly vernacular, the language common people spoke, not scribes. Some words are unclear or appear nowhere else in ancient Hebrew. Some location names are unknown. Others might be code names. Is this intentional obfuscation? A way to protect the treasure if the scroll fell into enemy hands? Or is it simply that the scribe assumed readers would know these locations, because they were obvious to people living in 1st century Judea? Either way, 2,000 years later, we're lost. If you're thinking, why hasn't anyone found this treasure? Subscribe, because the answer is way more complicated than you'd think. And comment. If you had the copper scroll, where would you start searching first? Now, let's talk about what this treasure might actually be. For 70 years, scholars have argued about what the copper scroll represents. The debate breaks into several theories. Theory 1. The temple treasury. In 70 AD, Roman legions under Titus besieged Jerusalem. The Jewish revolt had been raging for 4 years. Rome was coming to crush it. The second temple in Jerusalem contained immense wealth. Gold and silver vessels, ritual objects, donations accumulated over centuries. As the Romans closed in, temple officials might have hidden the treasury, burying it in secret locations throughout Judea to keep it from Roman hands. The copper scroll, in this theory, is the inventory of hidden temple treasure. Supporting this theory, timeline matches. The scroll dates to approximately 70 AD, exactly when the temple fell. Quantities make sense. The second temple was wealthy. Religious vessels are mentioned alongside precious metals. Hiding treasure before conquest is logical. The scroll's placement at Qumran might have been for safekeeping. Problems with this theory. Why write it on copper? Parchment would be easier, cheaper. Why hide it in a cave? Wouldn't temple officials keep it somewhere accessible for later retrieval? The language is too crude for official temple scribes. Some locations are far from Jerusalem. Theory 2. The Essene community hoard. The caves at Qumran are associated with the Essenes, a Jewish sect that withdrew from mainstream society to live ascetically in the desert. But ascetic doesn't mean poor. Essenes owned property, collected donations, managed resources. Maybe the copper scroll lists the Essene community's hidden wealth, accumulated over generations and buried when Rome threatened. Supporting this theory, found at Qumran, an Essene site. Qumran community likely hid valuables before fleeing. Scroll's crudeness fits non-professional sect members, not trained temple scribes. Multiple copies mentioned. Essenes were meticulous record keepers. Problems with this theory. The quantities are too large. An ascetic sect wouldn't accumulate billions in gold and silver. Essene texts emphasize poverty and communal living. Why list treasure in distant locations? Essenes stayed near Qumran. Theory 3. Bar Kokhba revolt spoils. Some scholars argue the treasure relates to the Bar Kokhba revolt, 132 to 135 AD, a second major Jewish uprising against Rome. Bar Kokhba briefly reclaimed Jerusalem and minted coins. His forces might have hidden war spoils and funds across Judea. The copper scroll could be an inventory of those hidden resources. Problem. Most scholars date the scroll earlier, to 70 AD based on paleography, handwriting analysis. The Bar Kokhba theory requires redating. Theory 4. It's not real. The most skeptical theory. The copper scroll is fantasy, fiction, folklore. The quantities are too large. The locations too vague. No treasure has been found despite decades of searching. Maybe it's an apocalyptic vision, a messianic fantasy about the wealth that would return to Israel when the Messiah arrived. Or maybe it's a propaganda piece, exaggerating Jewish wealth to boost morale during Roman oppression. Supporting this theory, quantities seem exaggerated. No archaeological confirmation of treasure. Some locations might be symbolic rather than literal. Ancient treasure legends are common across cultures. Problems with this theory. Why engrave fiction on expensive copper? Parchment is easier. The language is too practical, too detailed for fiction. Specific architectural details, cisterns, tunnels, suggest real knowledge of Jerusalem. Why hide fiction in a cave? Theory 5. Roman inventory. A minority view. The scroll was created by Romans cataloging treasure they'd already looted from Judea. After conquering Jerusalem in 70 AD, Romans paraded temple treasures through Rome, depicted on the Arch of Titus. Maybe the copper scroll was their inventory. Problem. Why would Romans write it in Hebrew? Why hide it at Qumran? Doesn't make sense. Since 1956, countless expeditions have attempted to find the copper scroll treasure. All have failed. The first major search was led by John Marco Allegro, a British scholar who worked on translating the Dead Sea Scrolls. In 1959 to 1960, Allegro organized an expedition to Judea, searching locations described in the scroll. He excavated at Qumran in the Judean desert, near Jerusalem. He was convinced the treasure was real and findable. He found nothing, not a single coin. Allegro's obsession with the treasure damaged his academic reputation. Other scholars distanced themselves. He became a cautionary tale. Treasure fever destroying a career. Subsequent expeditions have been more scientific but equally unsuccessful. 1980s. Israeli archaeologists excavate suspected sites. Nothing found. 1990s. Ground-penetrating radar surveys at Qumran. Anomalies detected, excavated, natural formations, not treasure. 2000s. Private treasure hunting expeditions, mostly illegal. Occasional arrests. No treasure. 2010s. Academic projects re-examine copper scroll locations. Still nothing. The problem isn't lack of effort. It's that the locations are impossible to identify with certainty. Why can't modern archaeologists, with advanced technology, find treasure locations described in detail? Problem 1. Landscape changes. 2,000 years of earthquakes, erosion, construction have altered topography. A ruin in the valley might now be under a modern building or obliterated entirely. Problem 2. Vague location names. The cistern below the rampart. Which rampart? Jerusalem had multiple fortification walls. Dozens of cisterns exist. Problem 3. Destroyed landmarks. The scroll references structures that no longer exist. The washer's chamber, the old pool, specific tunnels. Without knowing where these were, directions are useless. Problem 4. Possible code names. Some scholars believe location names are intentionally vague or coded. Valley of Acre might be symbolic, not literal. Problem 5. It might already be found. Perhaps the treasure was recovered in antiquity. Romans, later treasure hunters, or even the people who buried it might have retrieved it long ago. Problem 6. It never existed. The skeptical view. If it were real, someone in 2,000 years of searching would have found something. The complete failure suggests fiction. If you think the treasure is still out there, hit that like button. And comment. Do you think the copper scroll describes real treasure, or is it ancient fiction? Now, the historical context that might explain everything. To understand the copper scroll, you have to understand what happened to Judea in 70 AD. In 66 AD, Judea explodes into open revolt against Roman occupation. Years of oppression, taxation, and religious tension boil over. Jewish rebels take Jerusalem. They declare independence. They mint coins reading Freedom of Zion. Rome responds with overwhelming force. Legions march from Syria. General Vespasian leads the campaign, later succeeded by his son Titus. 70 AD. Roman legions surround Jerusalem. The siege lasts months. Starvation decimates the population. Internal factions fight each other even as Rome closes in. Finally, in August 70 AD, Roman legions breach the walls. They burn the Second Temple. The destruction is total. According to Josephus, over 1 million Jews die. Survivors are enslaved or scattered. The temple's gold and silver are looted. Titus parades the treasures through Rome. The Arch of Titus still depicts Roman soldiers carrying the golden menorah. Now imagine, you're a temple official or community leader. You know Rome is coming. You know they'll loot everything. What do? You hide the most valuable items. You bury them in multiple locations, so no single discovery reveals everything. You create an inventory, but you can't write it on parchment, too fragile, too easily destroyed. So you engrave it on copper. Permanent. Durable. You hide the copper scroll itself for safekeeping, planning to retrieve it when safety returns. But safety never returns. The temple is destroyed. Leaders are killed or scattered. The scroll sits in a cave for 1,900 years. And the treasure? Maybe looted by Romans who never bothered recording it. Maybe buried so well it remained hidden. Maybe it was never real. So where is the treasure? After 70 years of searching, why hasn't a single gold bar been found? The possibilities. 1. Looted in antiquity. Romans or later treasure hunters found and took it. No records survive because why would they record it? 2. Landscape destruction. 2,000 years of earthquakes, construction, and erosion buried or destroyed the sites beyond recognition. Point 3. Location codes. The locations are encoded or symbolic. Without the key, the missing explanation scroll, they're unsolvable. Point 4. It's fiction. The scroll records folklore, not reality. Ancient treasure fantasy, not actual hoards. Point 5. It's still out there buried deep, waiting, beneath modern buildings, under layers of sediment, in locations we haven't correctly identified. Which is true. We may never know. Today, the copper scroll resides in the Jordan Museum in Amman. It's been fully translated, photographed, studied by dozens of scholars. But it refuses to give up its secrets. Every few years, someone announces a new theory, a new location, a new search. And every time, nothing. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe some treasures aren't meant to be found. Or maybe someone already found it, quietly, secretly, and they're not telling anyone. After all, if you found $3 billion in ancient gold, would you report it? If the copper scroll mystery fascinates you, subscribe to this channel. We explore the treasures that vanished and the secrets that refuse to stay buried. Hit that like button if you think the treasure is still out there, waiting. And final question for the comments. If you found one treasure location from the copper scroll, what would you do? Keep it secret? Report it to authorities? Try to find more. Be honest. There's no judgment here. I'll see you in the next investigation, where we prove that history's greatest mysteries are the ones with treasure maps. Until then, remember, somewhere beneath Judean soil, 64 locations might still hold their secrets. Gold, silver, vessels of unimaginable value, hidden, waiting, guarded by nothing but time and mystery.